Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and that you're following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, it's all about encounters from the state of Idaho. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. Alright, I finally feel like sharing this story that happened to me a few years back in 2017. I was out hunting deep in the woods with my friend Jacob and his girlfriend Maria. Around noon, we decided to call it quits and do some off-roading in the Idaho backwoods. We drive at least another 20 miles back into the woods and are at least 40 miles from anything now. We look off to the right and see it. 2 mine shafts with big steel gates blocking them. We get the brilliant idea to check them out. One shaft has a gate that is literally cemented in place, which I guess means we aren't going there. The second shaft, however, just has a flimsy rusted chain and lock around the entrance gate. The gate has a bit of a gap, but it's too small for Jacob or I to fit through. Maria volunteers to squeeze through and see how far back it goes, as it curves off about 35 feet in, and we couldn't see past that. I hand her my 9mm pistol and a mag light from my Jeep, and she goes off around the corner. She says, "Guys, it seems to go back a ways," that she yelled out. Our interest is obviously piqued. She squeezes back out of the gap, while Jacob and I debate how to get our fat asses in there. We decide to take turns trying to shoot the lock with our hunting rifles, which, brilliant, right? So 4 rounds of 30-06 later, technically 2 because they were misses, the lock is shattered. Jacob and I go into the Jeep and grab our headlamps and decide to duct tape the mag light to my rifle. We set off timers on our phone for 2 hours and tell Maria to wait at the rig and go get help if we aren't back in 4 hours. Everything was good for the first bit because there were some cool icicles forming from the floor up to the ceiling. At roughly 125 yards in, we hit water. We should have turned back there, but no, we were stupid. We do rock, paper, scissors to see who should go in. I lost, so I had to take point, and I flipped my mag light on for extra light. The water has a really nasty orangish tint and smells like feces, rot, and metal. I was shivering in my waders, but I pushed forward with Jacob covering the rear, and then I hear what sounds like more sloshing in the water than what we were making. Jacob heard it too, so he sits still. The sloshing continues for a minute or so, and then stops. We can't see clearly past about 30 feet in front of us, but I swear I can see eye shine. I tell Jacob. He responds with, "Probably just a bat or something, man. Don't worry about it." Which, if only that were the case. Against my better judgment, I keep going. But Jacob and I swapped rifles and he took point. After what seemed like a mile or so of trudging through thigh-deep water, we finally hit dry soil again. Jacob and I decide to take a minute to catch our breath and sit down. As soon as our asses hit the ground, both of us hear an echoing voice that sounded just like Jacob, but after smoking a carton of cigarettes in a day. It says, "It's just a bat, man," followed by the most blood-curdling, inhuman scream I have ever heard. My stomach drops. We quickly debated whether if it would be faster to go back through the water or to try and find another way out. We chose wrong. We both decided to try and find an air vent or an emergency exit instead. Eventually, we come to a crossroads in the shaft. There's one path going forward that's collapsed, and there's what sounds like demonic cackling coming from the left. We decide to go right. This was wrong choice number 2. As we continue along, the smell of death overtakes us, and we think, screw this. We start heading back for the left path. A third set of footsteps starts coming from behind us. The cackling in front of us continues as well. We make it back to the crossroads. Jacob and I decide that we should try and make them back down by shooting. If you have never shot a high-caliber rifle in a confined space, don't do it. It hurt, and it makes the world spin. So, the world is spinning. There's loud-ass demonic-style screeching that can be heard over top of the ringing that's in my ears. Our disoriented asses take off down the left path. We get stopped in our tracks by a very tall figure standing in the tunnel. This figure was so tall that it had to hunch over in the tunnel. The body was so black that it just absorbed the light of our headlamps and flashlights. Neither of us could see its face, as its back was turned to us, but to this day, it was the scariest thing I've ever seen. From there, Jacob and I turned and booked it back to the crossroads. I've never ran faster than I ran through that water. When we got out, neither of us said a word to Maria. We loaded everything in the Jeep and took off back down the trail towards civilization. Now, in the years since this has happened, Jacob and I have just lost touch. I think whatever happened down there seems to have changed him. I don't know if he's still with Maria or not, but I hope they're both doing well regardless. The only reason I decided to talk about this now is because I recently found another abandoned mine, and these memories all came flooding back. Eventually, I might work up the nerve to go in there and see what's around, but not anytime soon. At least, not until I get some friends who are willing to go with me, 'cause I'm not going alone. Have you ever had something happen to you, and over time you seem to forget it, but then something happens one night that kind of brings it all back to you? In my case, the other night, I heard something in my backyard. It was just animals, but it definitely brought all this back. So I was celebrating my 22nd birthday. I decided to go solo camping for the first time ever. I'm a bit of a survival enthusiast, so of course I have like a kukri knife, an e-tool, a thermocam, and a couple of guns with me. I also bring a bottle of Stolichnaya vodka and a couple packs of Winston Reds because hey, it's my birthday. I decided at the time to just sleep in the back of my truck, which was a 93 Ford Ranger, with a clutch that was rapidly going out at the time. So I drive out to the Snake River Steppe, also deep into the sagebrush and lava fields. I poke around the rocks for a bit, trying to find some, and I did, that have kept the ripples from when they were still molten lava. I find that stuff super interesting and cool. I found a few tiny caves, but none of them were big enough or deep enough to be that interesting. I decide to return to camp when the sun starts to dip, and I decide to make dinner. I'd stolen some shrimp and salmon from the freezer, along with some lemon pepper and vinegar. I fry it as thoroughly as I can, using a tinfoil pan, all while sipping the Stoli and chain smoking. My dumbass accidentally fumbles the shrimp and I lose it in the dust, and I think, oh well, at least I have the salmon. There's no pink, and when I take a cursory bite, it tastes as salmon ought to, so full send. By now, the sun is just about gone, and I'm just sitting there, having lit my pipe, some Cavendish, I don't remember what exactly, and enjoying the fire. The Stoli bottle is kind of small, so I decide to full send that too. If I'm going to feel anything, I may as well. And now, my friends, what do you think happens when you combine questionably cooked fish with an entire bottle of vodka and no water? I didn't realize how much it would affect me until after I was doing some plinking, before I started stumbling around, the full gravity of my actions starting to sink in. I thought it would be a good idea at the time to use my thermal camera to see if I can spot some coyotes or some creepy crawlers. It's kind of a piece of shit, so I can't really tell the difference between any of the blobs, only that there are things out there. I'm not spooked, because nothing out in the sagebrush is a threat to me. Maybe the odd unmarked radioactive grave or something. It's April, and there's still some snow spots on the ground, so I throw a bunch of dead sagebrush on the fire and clamber into the bed of my truck to pass out. I wake up to vomit and fall back asleep. This cycle continues a few times. Each time I wake up, it's much colder. I was wearing a wool union suit, plus my clothes on top, plus my mummy bag with some extra wool blankets, but I was still shivering, and I was getting pretty miserable. I throw up again, only barely managing to angle my head over the cot this time. I half return to a very restless sleep when I hear something. It's a certain skittering or crackling in the sand, like something with an indeterminate number of legs is shuffling around rapidly, kicking up sand. It's not the gentle plodding of a coyote, nor the clumpy hoofsteps of a pronghorn. My nope factor is only at 0.1. I find this odd, but by no means do I feel threatened. Before I know it, I'm asleep again. I wake up again, but strangely not because I have to vomit. I realize the suspension of the truck seems off. I was parked on a gentle slope, and the bed was angled down just a little bit, but now it feels even. I wonder if I forgot to pull the parking brake, and somehow I must have rolled back just a little bit. I was still in a miserable stupor and didn't care. I roll on my back, and that's when I see it. There's a tarp I've put over the bed, weighted down on top of the cab with some chunks of basalt in case it rained or snowed. I see a silhouette through the moonlight. It's vaguely humanoid and squatting on top of the cab, and from what I believe is its head, it's staring right at me through the tarp. Suddenly, I am very aware and very sober. I reach for the pistol beside me, a 1911 I bought from my dad. My fingers come into contact with a puddle of vomit instead. I glide through the vomit and seize the handle of something else. I can tell by its weight and feel that it's the kukri knife. I swing it up through the tarp. The blade doesn't really cut the tarp. Instead, it just kind of brings it up with it, as if I were under a blanket and punching up at it. The thing hops off the truck and seems to disappear off into the night. The truck rocks back to its previous angle, and I'm listening intently, only to hear some rustling in the sagebrush. It could have been the wind or the thing retreating, but at this point, I didn't care. I look at my watch, which I can barely read in the moonlight. It's 4:13 in the morning. I decide that I'm done here. I don't want that thing to come back. I don't know how long it was there watching me sleep, but I'm not going to risk it again. I decide that I have to leave. The world's worst hangover returns shortly, and I'm having to stop the truck to throw up every few minutes, but I make it home by the time the sun is up. I spend the rest of the day throwing up, and I can't even eat for the next day or two because my throat is so sore. I don't really know what I saw out there. I don't really think it was a skinwalker or anything like that, but I don't think that it was the result of a hangover either. There's some weird stuff out there. I don't quite know what it was, but I have a feeling that I don't want to come into contact with it again. Back when I was 17, I went to stay with my uncle who owned a ranch in Idaho for the winter. My parents were older and had to be in their late 40s, so my uncle, Dad's older brother, is close to 60 and more like a grandpa than anything. He's been married and divorced twice and has been living alone for almost my entire life. I live in Mesa, Arizona, so the drive was absolutely grueling. My uncle picked me up in October of 2018. He's super tall and a big-ass dude with a massive beard. He's super chill, but really rough looking. His ranch is in the middle of nowhere, with no neighbors for miles, I think. When I got there, it was kind of exactly how I thought it would be. Super old school, kinda run down looking. Even from just driving in, I noticed something different. He had a long line of rocks lining the end of his property that were all painted white. I asked him about them, and he told me that he would tell me in a minute. As soon as we got in the house, he told me that there are rules when staying with them, and if I broke them, he would have no problem driving me all the way back home. He said I couldn't go out any time after sundown without him, under any circumstance. At night, I needed to have my curtains drawn at all times, the lights off. If I needed a light, I had to use a candle that he kept next to the bed. He took me outside and pointed to the white rocks and said that the rocks went around the entire property and have been there even before he lived there. He told me never to go over the rocks or go anywhere far from the house without him. I was kind of spooked, and I asked him why, and all he said was like, "Oh, there's a lot of coyotes around, and they can kill you if they kind of gang up on you." The first night was fine, except for the awful bed. The next day, he asked if I wanted to have fun and took me out back to shoot. A few weeks go by, fine, just hanging out and having bonfires, shooting and helping him on the property. I end up getting into pretty decent shape just helping him. And then, in the middle of November, we woke up to find a dead deer in the yard. My uncle flips his shit. He grabs me and puts me in the house and starts to lock the doors and the windows. He tells me to grab my shit and keep it near the door. I ask him to please tell me what the hell is going on, but he doesn't. He has me sleep in the living room on a pull-out couch while he sleeps in the chair. The next few days, it's like he's a totally different person. He's on edge and super paranoid. I end up sleeping in the living room for a week until he chills, and all is calm. Thanksgiving rolls around, and we cook up a turkey and a bunch of other frozen stuff that he had in the freezer. We stuff ourselves, and he even lets me have a few beers. We're chilling by the fire and talking about the time he got into a fight with a guy over his ex-wife while listening to his old records, when suddenly a shit ton of loud noises came out of nowhere. We both shoot up. He runs for the door. I follow after him and end up running full speed into the back of him and falling over. He had stopped at the door and started locking the locks. I thought he was running outside, so I ran full speed. He tells me to grab his shotgun. I'm freaked out at this point because my massive badass of an uncle is absolutely losing his shit. The loud noises outside sound like barking, they sound like yelling, and someone hitting a metal trash can. It's all mixed together, and it's a weird garble of noises. And then, the window breaks. A massive rock was thrown through it. It was one of the painted white rocks. I'm freaking out now. My uncle shoots out the window. My ears are ringing, and I'm crying at this point. He tells me to grab a table and put it against the window. I put it against the window while he runs to his room. He comes back out with his rifle, and he hands it to me. He tells me if I see anything, to not hesitate to shoot it. I ask him if we should just call the cops, but he tells me that they would never get here in time. It would be at least a few hours. All night, we sit in the living room listening to whatever this thing is destroy the porch and pound on the door. As soon as the sun comes up, my uncle goes to the door and starts to unlock it. I start to freak out, like WTF are you doing? They're still there. He rips the door open, and there's nothing. I'm absolutely shitting my pants, thinking of all the stories that I've read on the internet about monsters and cryptids and everything else. The door is absolutely destroyed on the outside. It's super scratched up. There's chunks missing. The porch has pieces missing, and his truck has all the windows smashed and the tires are shredded. It looks like a bomb went off outside. My uncle looks around and sighs. I ask him, what the hell was that? He looks at me and tells me, oh, there's a gang that comes around and does this type of stuff to people's houses. I say, a gang? Why are you lying to me? What's actually going on? He basically tells me something to the effect of shut the F up and relax. I don't believe him in the slightest, and I can see that he's kicking himself for telling such an awful, shitty lie. I go to take a picture of the door outside, and he grabs my phone and says no. I say, what the hell? He tells me that if my mother saw what happened, she would kill him. He tells me to relax and that it's okay. We clean up the porch, and he has me help him replace his tires with a few old ones from the shed. We limp the truck back to town for him to get replacement tires and ask about the windows. Everyone in town is staring hard at us like we just drove into town on a clown car. It's a small town with a cafe/diner, gas station, mechanic, general store, and a motel. Everyone knows each other for the most part. The gas station clerk comes out and starts to talk to my uncle. The clerk and my uncle are talking quietly, and I can see the clerk is upset. I overhear him say, well, what did you expect? It's getting worse every year, man. At this point, I think, okay, WTF. He takes me back to the house and tells me that the gang that he was talking about was real, but they're more like vandals and tweakers. I still don't believe him in the slightest, but I act like I do for his peace of mind. That night, my uncle was surprisingly calm and told me that they wouldn't come back 2 nights in a row. The night was calm, except for this weird feeling in the air. It was almost like static or electricity, like the whole place would blow up if the littlest thing happened. I woke up really late to my uncle snoring in his chair. I had to go to the bathroom super bad. The fire had died out, so I used my phone light to make my way to the bathroom. The bathroom is super small, with a tiny window at the top of the back wall. This is also right behind the toilet. I get to the bathroom, and I turn on the light to piss. While I'm doing my business, I start hearing this weird noise. It's like the tiniest scratching sound. I quickly realize it's coming from the window, and then it turns into tapping. I'm so terrified, I'm just frozen there. If I wasn't already peeing, I'd definitely be doing it now. And then I realize I really screwed up. I turned the light on when I'm supposed to be using a candle. I start shaking, and then the window breaks and the glass hits me. I see this awful pale hand reach through the broken window. Screaming, I back out of the bathroom, pissing all over my legs and pants. I didn't even look back at the window. I just ran down the hall, trying to pull my pants up. My uncle runs around the corner and grabs me. He yells at me, "What happened? What happened?" while I try to yell back what did indeed happen. He sees the light on and runs to shut it off. He then yells, "I thought I made it effing clear about the lights at night." I'm crying, digging through my duffel bag looking for new pants. The next day, we leave. He drives me home, saying it just will be safer if I wasn't there. He told me not to ever tell my parents because they would absolutely freak out, and I don't blame them. He stayed at the house with us for a few days, and eventually we both chilled out again. The way I see it, I was a kid back then. I was only 17. I'm older now. I have more experience. I want to go back and see if he'll let me take pictures, set up a camera, or maybe even help him deal with whatever is plaguing his property. I don't really know what to think, since he won't tell me really anything about what happened. It's not like some other stories that you see on the internet where it's talking and whispering or copying voices. Whatever this is just violent. And I was scared back then. but I'm not scared anymore. So those encounters were all pretty insane, weren't they? If one in particular stuck out to you, as always, let me know which one it was down in the comments. As always, again, if you have one of your own, I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you'd like to. Also down there is a PayPal and a Patreon that you can donate to the channel that way if you want to. And on here on the YouTube platform, there's memberships and super thanks. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and favorite and share the video and all that good stuff. And that stuff is free. So, with all of that, I think I'll see you in the next one. I thank you for pulling up a stump. I thank you for watching the videos this week, and I hope to see you next week. I'll see you then.